Hey guys, and welcome back to another Lost Bits video here on TetraBitGaming, the series where we explore the unused, altered, and unseen content in gaming. And we're back once again with some more Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. If you haven't watched the previous videos, I highly recommend them for some more context, but in this video we'll be checking out some unused models, graphics, audio, and more. And before we get to that, I'd like to thank War Thunder for sponsoring this video. War Thunder is the most extensive vehicle combat game out there on PC, consoles, and now mobile devices as well. War Thunder features over 2,500 various tanks, helicopters, planes, and ships from 10 major nations of the world, ranging from the 1920s to present day. War Thunder is incredibly immersive with detailed vehicles, graphics, and sound effects that you can experience in game modes catered to every type of player, from more casual, simplified matches to the simulator mode, which cranks the authenticity of how the vehicles operate to the max. So join a worldwide community of over 70 million players and check out War Thunder for free with my link in the description, and new and returning players that haven't played for at least 6 months on PC and consoles can get a massive bonus pack with various goodies including 100,000 silver lions, premium account benefits, and more. And with all of that said, wrap some yarn around that like button below. It's time to check out some more Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 Lost Bits. Alright, so to kick things off for this video, one thing that a bunch of people commented on my first video regarding the planned side quests that were scrapped from the game was for the Ed being mentioned here. And yeah, keen fans were quick to point out that there's actually an Odd Ed character that can be found in the safe haven. And it's this crafty corn here that just says something about being able to trust Poppy after she returns.
Can we really trust her this time?
And as we saw on the developer comment in the first video, the player would have had to pose for Ed to draw a portrait. So this Ed being a crafty corn artist checks out. But why Ed is referred to as Odd Ed is unfortunately still a mystery, as this one line from this Ed is all we end up getting in the release version of this game. And then speaking of the characters and scrapped side quests in Safe Haven, now's a good chance to segue to going over some unused audio left in the game, as we got some relating to both of those things. First, we actually have some unused dialogue left over for Izzy, another character mentioned as part of the scrapped side quests, where the player was going to be tasked with getting Izzy a birthday cake. Now this unused dialogue doesn't refer to the cake at all, but rather it's actually a conversation this Izzy would have had with Scout, the little boogie bot that's seen in Safe Haven that seems to be in charge of its security systems. Anyways, let's give this unused dialogue a listen.
Izzy, have you done what I asked you to? Gathered all your things?
Oh, yeah! I've got my journal and my crayons and my dolly and my—
Good. Good, I just wanted to make sure.
You sound sad.
No, just thinking.
Thinking about what?
About everything to come. About our part in it.
Oh. Okay. Are we still gonna play our game later? You promised we would.
I remember, kiddo. And a good scout knows to keep her promises.
Yes!
But finish up your tasks first, please. Then my time is all yours.
Okay, I'll get them done quick! Super quick! You won't even see me do them!
That better mean they're actually getting done, though.
Now this file is found in a folder for the player's second visit back to the safe haven. And as we saw in my video covering the early versions of the chapter's areas, the Bobby Bear Hug there was named Izzy. So this dialogue was very likely to have been meant to play here, as we have Scout and Izzy facing each other. Now, as you heard, the exchange was honestly kinda sad, as it seems like Scout was planning on evacuating the safe haven with the other critters, as they probably deemed it unsafe at this point. And I don't know why this ended up getting scrapped, as I think this and other dialogue like this would have done wonders for this chapter's environmental storytelling, and it would have made the player feel more attached to these characters here, as opposed to them just mostly being voiceless, static parts of the safe haven backdrop. And then, sort of similar to this, there's also a scrapped audio file for the medic bot seen in the safe haven as well. And I don't know what you think, but to me, this seems like it's pretty unfinished.
Friend going to be okay. She stronger than she think.
Now this line is also found in the folder for the second visit, and I'm assuming the she being referred to in this clip is Kissy Missy, as she, I guess, was planned to still be seen in the safe haven recovering from her previous injuries, but in the final cut of this chapter, she's just not there the second visit. And as such, the medic bot just awkwardly sits there with no dialogue. And now that I think of it, it's unclear where Kissy Missy even is at this point in the chapter, as she's not seen anywhere else in the area, but I guess based on these voice lines from the medic bot, she might have once been planned to still be here. And then also for the second visit back to the safe haven, there's a small scrapped line for Poppy asking if the player obtained the Omni Hand. And not only do we have the audio for it left over, but there's an accompanying animation for Poppy as well.
Do you have it? The Omni Hand?
Now it seems likely that this line was to be used when the player returned to the safe haven area after getting the Omni Hand, but having another hand equipped when approaching Poppy. But normally in the final game, regardless of which hand you have equipped, she'll just note that you did in fact find the Omni Hand.
You have it! The Omni Hand!
And then last, but absolutely not least, for the scrapped safe haven voice clips, there are a pair of lines related to Doey's side quest that, just like the side quest itself, ended up going unused. And similar to the Poppy line previous, not only are the audio files for these left over, but lip sync animations of Doey speaking them are as well. Now, as we saw back in my first video on this chapter, the side quest for Doey would have tasked the player with finding and bringing him back a book. And, well, I'll let the unused dialogue here speak for itself. First, we have the audio that would have seemingly played when the player would approach Doey when first able to take on side quests.
Hey, if you... well, that is, if you have the time, there's something else I'd like you to watch out for. It's... The Adventures of the Word Wizard! It's a book. An old favorite of ours. If you happen to find it around here, could you bring it back to me?
And then secondly, there's also the scrapped dialogue that would have been used after the player found the book and brought it back to Doey.
You found it! Thank you! It may not seem like much, but this is... well, it's a reminder. We used to read this all the time in the orphanage. All of us lined up in a circle on the floor. And even after having heard it 1,000 times, even if you were too young to really get the meaning, each and every face would still be smiling the second the first word was read. I think we need a little of that again before... Anyway, thank you. I won't forget this.
Now, interestingly, this isn't the only time that the Adventures of the Word Wizard is mentioned in this chapter either, as it's also referenced in one of the notes that you can find in the game as well. Now, just like some of the other scrapped voice lines, I think it's a shame that this was scrapped, as it would have helped us sympathize with Doey and the critters in the safe haven even more. And Doey's animations here are super expressive too, so it's too bad that this was cut. Then, in addition to all of these voice clips, there also appears to be 4 sound effects meant for the scrapped side quests as well. There's one for picking up a can of frosting, I guess related to Izzy's birthday cake. A drawing sound effect, likely for when the player would have to pose for Ed to draw a portrait. There's one for a poster tearing. And this one doesn't immediately appear to be related to any of the side quests we saw in the developer notes, but it might be related to how one of the vent paths was originally planned to be covered by a poster, as we saw in another dev comment. And then lastly, there's another unused sound effect of some shackles being picked up and put down. And this one also doesn't immediately seem to be related to any of the quests listed in the dev notes, but maybe it was part of getting Kickin' Chicken his revenge or something. And then lastly, for the unused audio here, there are actually a few audio clips that appear to be placeholders that were quickly recorded off the cuff by one of the developers. These include a pair of placeholder audio clips for the Doctor, one for him retreating.
Man, f this, I'm out of here.
Another one for him getting deactivated.
Fuck you, I'm going back to sleep.
And then there are also a pair of unused clips listed as being meant for the train audio, presumably the Doctor's monologue, starting as well as ending.
The train is starting! The train is starting! The light turned on, there's smoke, it's all looping, which we gotta turn off when another sequencer plays. It's starting! Hey, this is the sound of you leaving the level.
Now, it should be no surprise as to why these were cut, but I just think they're hilarious, and I'm glad these were left over for us here to enjoy. Now, next up, one thing I mentioned in a previous video is that there were two areas that were seemingly scrapped between the No Man's Land and Doctor's Domain sections in this chapter, as they're internally listed as the 9th and 12th areas of the chapter respectively. Of course, leaving the 10th and 11th missing. Well, although lacking an actual map left over like the other ones, I did actually find the 10th and 11th levels referenced in the files, with the 10th one being referred to as an abandoned production area, and then the scrapped 11th map is referred to as Critter Tunnels. And although not certain, you could probably speculate that maybe the Critter Tunnels were reworked into the area leading up to the Foundation or something, but regardless, yeah, at least where these are placed in the sequence of the game's levels, these two areas were cut. Next, there's actually an alternate version of Chapter 4's intro cutscene with several differences that can be noted. Now, it's definitely a case of quantity over quality though for these differences, as most of them are pretty minor. And as you can see on this list of differences made up by my pal Galantark here, there's at least a few too many to do a deep dive into all of them here. But highlights include some clips being shorter, different camera angles being used for some of the shots, there's a different phone number here, and then the biggest change, at least in my opinion, is that, well, besides this section not being censored, this unused variant actually uses what seems to be raw audio from the home video recording section, rather than dubbed voiceovers that were used in the used version of this cutscene. Here's a comparison of both of those sections to illustrate how different they sound.
I knew it! This is the one I wanted! I knew it! This is the one I wanted!
There's a card too, dear. Open the card. There's a card too. Open the card.
So yeah, although there are several more minor differences, most of them are still pretty interesting I think, and it's pretty cool that this seemingly early version is still left over in the files. Now, moving along to the models and textures, there are a few found left over unused in this chapter too. First, for the textures, there's this poster of a cute little wolf fella, fittingly just titled Wolf. And of course, we also have some text here. On the top, we have Varg and Hauge, both of which appear to be of Scandinavian or Old Norse origins, with Varg translating to wolf and Hauge translating to hill or mound, so Wolf Hill. And then we also have some Japanese text on the bottom here translating to Varg as well. So I guess Varg is the name of this wolf here. Now, I'm not sure if this is from some other media or something, but yeah, I couldn't find this poster anywhere in the chapter myself. Then next, in the files, I found a model of this warning sign featuring a skull and crossbones, an arrow symbolizing electricity, and what looks to be some Polish text. Now, I didn't check every single warning in this game, but I did check a lot of them, and I couldn't find this sign. But in addition to this grungy texture that's applied to this model, the full texture file actually contains what looks to be real-world photos of several other signs as well, including a slightly cleaner version of it with a red arrow and all of the text visible, where it says "Nie dotykać urządzenie elektryczne," which translates from Polish to "do not touch electrical device." And then we also have these other signs in yellow, red, and white, each with different letters and numbers, and personally, I'm not sure what the rest of these denote. And then last up for the textures here for this video, we have this one featuring photos of several kids. Now this photo is seen in the chapter in the memorial room, and then we saw this fella as a placeholder image on the monitors in the early version of the autopsy room. But I don't recall seeing the photos of any of these other kids in this chapter. And I don't know if these are childhood photos of some of the devs or something, and even though AI is getting better and better at generating photos of humans now, I think these photos seem to be real. If any of the devs end up watching this video, be sure to let us know. And now moving on to the three-dimensional side of things, first, we saw this model in the early map of the Doctor's Domain, and that's this arm model, referenced in the game simply as effigy, that was seemingly used there as a placeholder for the second blue hand you obtain in the morgue room. Now for those that don't know, an effigy is typically a roughly made sculpture or model to represent a person or object. But since this arm doesn't seem to match any of the currently known characters in the series, we don't really know who this is supposed to be an effigy of. Now, in a previous video, I mentioned how there's a possibility that this could be related to a jester-looking character that was teased in an ARG leading up to this chapter's release. And although we didn't end up seeing a character of this nature in this chapter, the features on the shoulder of this model definitely make it seem like it is for a jester-themed character. And of course, as you've been seeing, the connector in the shoulder here also very much looks like a key, so it's entirely possible that this arm was going to be used as a key item that the player would have had to pick up and use to open up another area. Either way, I think it's kind of weird that a character was so subtly teased only to not show up at all, but maybe we'll see more of this jester and what this arm could have been for in future chapters. Next up, although obviously several toys are seen throughout Chapter 4 here, one that isn't is Daddy Longlegs. But there's actually a model for him left over in the files, and we also saw this in the early version of the Doctor's Domain autopsy area as well on one of the tables. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've ever actually seen a Daddy Longlegs model in one of the chapters. So although it seems like he was initially planned to appear in the autopsy section before getting scrapped, at least we have an actual official model for him now, although there's no texture to go with it, unfortunately. And then lastly for the models here, another one we saw in the early maps is this early version of Riley, the one child that was turned into a toy creature seen at the start of the chapter before getting into the prison. And although not unused obviously, the final version of this character's model is simply referred to as Crate Toy, which I guess, yeah, makes sense. It just seemed kind of blunt considering how deep the environmental storytelling for this character was. And then also not unused, but a thing I found interesting is that there are 3 different models of Kissy Missy in this chapter. One basic normal one, a second one with her injured arm in a sling, and then the third sling-less one that's seen towards the ending of the game. And this one is straight up just titled Kissy Detachable Arm. And now last up for this video is a bit of an oddity with the Doctor's Eye video that's seen inside of the prison cell cube thing that you enter in order to get into the prison. So, although it appears here, it turns out that the video on the screen is actually synced up to the audio that's heard as the player rides up the elevator to the Doc's HQ. Now, in the final version of this chapter, there's no monitor on the elevator for this video to be displayed, but this certainly seems to suggest that there was one supposed to be, or at the very least, this video was supposed to be seen on the numerous monitors just as you hop off the elevator, instead of just the static scrolling and brief iClip that's normally seen. Here's what the Doctor's monologue sounds like with the video as it was seemingly intended.
Do you hear it? Like I do. Off somewhere. Somewhere. Far. Beyond this place. Beyond any place. A bell. For whom does it toll, you think? A wounded little pup lifts its head beneath the shadow of the master's raised foot. For whom does that bell now toll?
And then similarly, for the section just after this, where the player gets tossed down to the lower floor, there's a video of the doctor's line here, also meant to be seen on a monitor. But for whatever reason, this also doesn't appear to be used in the section where the line is heard.
Not even the ground beneath your feet.
Now, it's unclear why exactly these videos weren't used in this area, as they were seemingly intended. Maybe there were some complications with getting them to play with the audio on the dozens of TVs in this room. But either way, I think it's kind of interesting that they reused the first video in the train segment, even if it was for a completely different set of lines from the Doctor. Once again, thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check it out on PC, Xbox, PlayStation, or mobile devices today. And new players and those who haven't played in over 6 months across PC and consoles can use my link to grab your bonus pack with premium vehicles, in-game currency, and more. And my friends, that'll wrap up this video, and I hope you enjoyed. I think there's one more to go for Chapter 4 here, where we'll dive into various different bits of concept art and animations. Until then though, check out some of my other Lost Bits videos, and be sure to subscribe to the channel to find your way back here in the future. And as always, thank you all so much for popping by today, and I will see you in a bit.